The Gulf Wraith looked like it was rotting where it sat, tied to a sagging dock in Apalachicola Bay, its hull streaked with rust like old blood. I was out of options, evicted, dumped, and down to my last $20, when I answered the ad for a deckhand. Good pay, no experience needed. Captain Amos met me at the pier, a lean man with skin like cracked leather and eyes that didn't blink enough. He handed me a crumpled paper, the edges stained with something dark. "Rules," he said, voice flat. "Follow them, or you don't come back." The list was short, written in shaky pen. No whistling after sunset. Don't look at the water when the fog comes. If you hear singing, plug your ears. Never touch the catch in hold 3. I thought it was a joke, some old-timer prank to haze the new guy. But Amos's stare made my stomach twist, and the crew, 3 men waiting on deck, didn't crack a smile. Jake, broad and scarred, smoked a cigarette and sized me up like I was already dead. Eli, older, with a limp and a rosary around his neck, muttered to himself and avoided my eyes. Sam, barely out of his teens, kept his head down, hands fidgeting. I stuffed the rules in my pocket and climbed aboard, the deck creaking under my boots. We cast off at dawn, the Gulf Wraith groaning as it cut through the glassy bay. My job was grunt work, hauling nets, sorting fish, scrubbing decks. The crew worked fast, silent, their movements mechanical. Jake barked orders when he had to, but mostly they ignored me. By noon, the sun burned my neck, and the air smelled of salt and diesel. I tried asking Sam about the rules, just to break the quiet. "Don't," he whispered, glancing at the water. "Just follow them." That night, I heard the singing. It came from nowhere, soft and sweet, like a woman humming a lullaby. The sound drifted over the waves, curling into my head. I stood at the rail, staring into the black water, until Jake grabbed my arm. "Ears," he snapped, shoving wax plugs at me. I jammed them in, heart racing. The singing faded, but something moved out there, a pale shape under the surface, gone before I could focus. Jake didn't say another word, just turned his back to the sea. The boat felt wrong after that. The creaks weren't just old metal settling, they came in patterns, like footsteps pacing the hold. Shadows flickered in corners, even when the sun was high. Hold 3 was below deck, a rusted hatch bolted shut, marked with a faded red X. I caught Eli staring at it once, his lips moving like he was praying. When I asked what was in there, he limped away without answering. By day 3, I was jumping at every sound. The crew's silence was heavier now, their eyes darting to the water when they thought I wasn't looking. Sam started talking to me, though, in quick, nervous bursts when we were alone. He said he'd been on the Gulf Wraith for 6 months, longer than most deckhands. "They don't last," he muttered, gutting a snapper. "Break the rules, and you're gone." I pressed him for more, but he clammed up when Jake walked by. That night, I woke to footsteps above my bunk. Slow, wet, like someone dragging their feet across the deck. I lay still, sweat soaking my shirt, listening. The steps stopped right over me, then started again, circling. I grabbed my flashlight and crept up, heart in my throat. The deck was empty, slick with something that glistened in the beam. Not water, thicker, with a faint red tint. I followed it to hold 3's hatch. The bolts were tight, but the metal was warm, like it had been touched. Day 5 brought fog, thick and gray, swallowing the horizon. The crew went quiet, their movements stiff. Jake chain-smoked, his hands shaking. Eli clutched his rosary, whispering faster. Sam kept his eyes on the deck, like he was afraid to look up. I tried to focus on work, but the air felt heavy, pressing into my chest. The singing came again, louder, pulling at me like a hook. I caught myself staring at the water, just for a second. Something pale flashed below, too big to be a fish, too fast to be human. Eli saw me and grabbed my collar. You looked, he hissed. Don't do it again. He dragged me below, his grip bruising. You wanna end up like the others, he said, voice low. They looked. They listened. They touched. And they're gone. I asked who, what, but he just shook his head and limped away. That night, the footsteps came again, heavier, closer. I didn't go up. I couldn't. The smell was worse now, salt and rot, seeping through the walls. On day 7, Jake disappeared. We found his bunk empty, his boots still by the bed, soaked like they'd been dipped in the sea. The deck was clean, no blood, no sign of him. Amos didn't say a word, just handed out tasks like it was normal. Sam was shaking, muttering about her watching us. Eli prayed louder, his voice cracking. I wanted to run, but we were miles from shore, trapped in the Gulf's endless gray. I started noticing things. Scales on the deck, small and pearlescent, like nothing I'd seen in the nets. They shimmered, almost glowing, and when I swept them overboard, they felt alive, pulsing under my fingers. The rules burned in my mind, especially the last one. Hold 3. I hadn't touched the catch, but I'd seen the scales, and that was enough to make my skin crawl. On day 10, I couldn't take it anymore. The singing was constant now, even with plugs in my ears. It wasn't just a sound, it was in my head, saying my name, soft and hungry. The boat rocked at night, not from waves but from something heavy moving below. I waited until the crew was asleep and crept to hold 3. The hatch was rusted, the bolts loose, like they'd been tampered with. My flashlight shook as I pried it open. Inside was dark, the air thick with that rot smell. My beam caught something, piles of scales, heaped like treasure, glowing faintly. They moved, shifting like they were breathing. I reached out, stupidly, and touched one. It was cold, slick, and pulsed like a heartbeat. The hatch slammed shut behind me, the boat lurching. The singing stopped, replaced by a low, wet laugh. Something slid across the floor, too big for the space, too close. I bolted, locking myself in the cabin. The crew was gone again, their bunks empty. The boat rocked harder, like something was climbing aboard. I heard my name, clear and deep, from the other side of the door. Not human. Too wet, too wrong. I clutched my knife, useless, and waited for dawn. When the sun rose, the fog was gone. The hatch was shut, the deck clean. The crew was back, working silently, but they wouldn't look at me. Amos pulled me aside, his eyes like voids. You touched it, he said. I nodded, throat dry. He handed me my pay and pointed to shore. Get off my boat. I left, but it followed me. In my motel, I hear the singing at night, soft and sweet, calling my name. Wet footprints appear on the floor, leading to my bed. Scales show up in my pockets, on my sink, alive and pulsing. I don't sleep. I keep the lights on, but it doesn't matter. In the dark, I see it, a smile, wide and glistening, waiting just beyond the light.